Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're here today to confront a painful but pressing truth. Our city, much like the rest of the nation, is besieged by a devastating gun problem. There can be no denying it. We cannot ignore it. Ever since the federal assault weapons ban expired back in 2004, there has been a steady proliferation of guns throughout the United States, particularly in our cities. The ramifications have been disastrous and they've been deadly. There are now more guns on the streets of Columbus than ever before in cities all over America. Last year, the Division of Police recovered more than 3,300 firearms, the most ever collected by the division. So far, we're on track to recover more guns this year than we did last year, a testament to the dedication and hard work of Chief Bryan and our officers, and to the community who continue to share tips and information. But it's also a very disturbing indication of all the work that remains to be done. Despite the false, fanciful, and far-fetched claims of extremist politicians and extreme interest groups, these weapons are not making our neighborhoods safer. Quite the opposite is true. Unfortunately, the state legislature continued to stand in our way. They passed some of the most reckless and dangerous gun laws in the history of the state, and children and families are paying with dear consequences. They are on the wrong side of this critical issue. It is up to us at the local level, mayors, city managers, council members, police chiefs, public health officials, prosecutors, judges, to do what we can within our power, within our jurisdiction, to keep our residents safe. But know this, we will not yield. We will not stand down. Our oaths require us to do everything we can to make our city safer. We're not trying to eliminate the constitutional right to bear arms. On the contrary, we welcome responsible gun owners, and many of them support some of these common sense, basic. These are things supported by Republicans, Democratic office holders, people from all walks of life, gun owners as well. They understand, as we do, that every constitutional right comes with its share of responsibilities. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater and hide behind the First Amendment. You shouldn't be able to own a gun if you've committed violence against intimate partners, family members. There's no reason we can't have universal background checks. And we know, based on what's happened just this past week in Columbus, that everyone that owns a gun needs to make sure it's safely stored away from children and other criminals who may want to steal it and hurt others. This includes keeping the guns out of the hands of those who should not have access to them in the first place. Criminals are certainly at the top of that list, but children and minors too. It's incumbent upon us to stop the flow of firearms into the hands of our young people. Guns are not toys, and owning them is a very serious responsibility. According to the CDC, guns are the leading cause of death for children and teens in the United States. Let me repeat that. Nothing is killing children and teenagers more in America than guns. And they have been ever since 2020, when they surpassed traffic accidents for the first time in American history. This is a crisis. It's happening on our watch. We have an obligation to act, and we are. That's why I declared gun violence a public health crisis and charged Dr. Roberts with establishing specific recommendations that tackle this problem head on. One of those recommendations was to create an Office of Violence Prevention, which, as you all know, we're standing up under the leadership of Director Rena Shag. But we've also done what we can to pass common sense gun safety laws within the city of Columbus. like limiting the number of rounds in a magazine, demanding safe storage for guns, and increasing penalties for shady firearms dealers. Doesn't seem very extreme to me. Seems like pretty sensible, basic things we ought to do to protect children and families and keep guns out of the hands of criminals. A Delaware County judge halted enforcement of those laws earlier this week, and City Attorney Klein is here today to talk about our next steps, because we will continue this fight. This setback does not mean we're giving up, far from it. We're continuing to make the case for responsible gun ownership and giving our residents the tools they need to keep their children and families safe. Let's start with the basics. Guns must be properly stored, locked up, stowed away in a secure location where children cannot get to them, or better yet, where children do not even know they exist. Sadly, this is not proving to be the case. Just last weekend, there were multiple accidental shootings in our city involving children finding guns that were not safely stored. And make no mistake, these were preventable tragedies, each and every one of them. Dr. Roberts will talk more in just a few moments about the importance of lockboxes and how our residents can go about getting them free of charge. The city is doing everything we can to protect children and make our neighborhoods safer. But we need everyone in our community to step up and take action as well. If you have a firearm in your home, lock it up, secure it, keep it out of reach from children and teens. Please do not leave your firearms in your cars. We know that there are a series of illegal criminal gangs that are breaking into cars throughout the city and the region to help supply the firearms they need to carry out violent crimes in our community. Secure your weapons. At the same time, you need to know where your kids are and who they're with. Have a plan in place to make sure they have the care and supervision they need before school, after school, on weekends, during the evening hours. And speaking of evening hours, set a curfew, enforce it. We don't need a citywide curfew. We need a curfew in every home throughout this city, and we need parents enforcing it. If you aren't able to be home, lean on family members, trusted friends, and loved ones to help fill those gaps. This is where we all have a part to play. Relatives, faith leaders, neighbors, other members of the community, and of course the city. This is a collaborative effort, plain and simple, and it will require each of us, every single one of us, to pitch in and do our part. To talk more about the work underway at the Division of Police, and to share some insights into what our officers are experiencing on the streets of Columbus, it's my pleasure to introduce our Chief, Elaine Bryant.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Ginther, Dr. Roberts, City Attorney Klein, for being here today. Gun violence continues to plague our community and harm our neighbors, friends, and loved ones. In 2022, 89% of our homicide victims died from a gunshot wound. That's 124 out of 139. Additionally, 77.4% of felonious assaults were the result of gunfire. As we discussed earlier this year, we set a record last year with 3,356 seized weapons, including 17 that had Glock switches, which convert to fully automatic weapons. This year, 86% of our 53 homicides have been a result of gun violence. Additionally, 75% of our felonious assaults have been non-fatal shootings. That's 306 out of 404. We have seized over 1,060 guns this year. That's over 1,000 guns, and it's April. We've also seized 26 Glock switches, which is well above the total all of 2022. While the numbers are important, they don't tell the full story. In the past week, there have been numerous examples of senseless, preventable violence that has impacted our community. Last Friday, an adult male was shot in our community, allegedly by his 3-year-old son. who found the firearm and accidentally shot his father in the chest. The incident is under investigation, but points to the needs for adults to be responsible with firearms and provide a safe environment for our children. On Saturday, a 16-year-old was shot and is fighting for his life after being shot in a friend's house. Later that evening, a 21-year-old man was shot and killed inside a West Side apartment. The suspect is known to the victim. He turned himself in and was taken into custody. While the incident is under investigation, all of these incidents involve the reckless, careless, negligent handling of firearms. Monday evening, 3 juveniles, ages 12, 13, and 15, were in a stolen vehicle. The 15-year-old sustained a gunshot wound and will survive his injuries. The indication is that the incident started on Caldwell Place and the juveniles fled, ending up near Columbus State before stopping and getting medical attention. On Tuesday, what appears to be an incident that started in the area of East 24th and Cleveland Avenue turned into an incident that resulted in a rolling gun battle that ended on Interstate 71. A 24-year-old female sustained a gunshot wound to the leg during the encounter. She had her 2-year-old daughter in her lap. Thankfully, the woman will survive and her daughter was not hurt. But this is yet another example of adults endangering the community and their own children by exposing them to violent behavior. Many of these incidents have a common theme: the careless, irresponsible, and illegal use of guns and the needs for adults to step up, be more responsible with firearms, and provide a safe environment for their children. As a parent, I am appealing to the parents and adults in our city. Lock up your weapons. Keep them out of the hands of the young people. This is not solely a police issue, let's be clear. This is a community issue. This is a court issue. This is a issue for all of us. We all have to band together to be able to solve the violence that is occurring in our city. I brought with me a Glock switch. I think it's important for you to know what it looks like and how small it is. This little plastic piece of device can allow a gun to be turned into an automatic weapon and fire up to 30 rounds in 30 seconds. We've taken 26 of these off the streets, and it's April. Last year, we only took, for the entire year, 17. That just goes to show you what we're dealing with out in the city. Thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Roberts now to come to the stage and speak.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Chief Bryant, and thank you, Mayor. It's good to see all of you today, unfortunately, under these circumstances. My notes. So the news that has been shared with you thus far today is tragic. And gun violence, as you've heard, is involving some of our youngest residents right here in Columbus, our youngest innocent residents. Gun violence is a public health issue, and it affects thousands of children, teenagers, adults, and families, not only here in Columbus, but across our country every single year, many of which are unintentional. And sadly, we've seen it right here, as has been shared with you this week. Columbus Public Health has been working with many of our partners to address gun violence as a public health issue. One of the key components of public health is prevention. So what does that mean? It means if you have a gun, you have to protect it from those vulnerable in your household and in your community. If you own a gun, you need to be responsible and make sure it's secured safely away from others who should not be playing with it, who should not have access to it. So specifically, we're talking about firearm safety, right? It should be a regular conversation that you have with individuals in your household. Yes, we have a gun in our household, but what does it mean? Who should have access to it? And how should you use it? You need to use it responsibly. It is not a toy. It is not something you should be playing around with. In addition to storing your gun safely and having those conversations with not only youth in your household, but others in your household, you should be storing that ammunition separately from the gun. Those are all very basic public health recommendations that don't just come from Columbus Public Health, but come from CDC and other national public health agencies across the country. Responsible gun ownership means storing your guns safely. You should always make sure that your gun is unloaded and secured by using a trigger lock, a biometric lock, a gun case, a gun cabinet, or a safe. And as I mentioned, the ammunition should be stored safely and separately. Columbus Public Health is pleased to offer these lock boxes to residents to help them secure their guns safely. In 2022, we distributed 2,100 lock boxes. Thus far, and we're at the end of April of 2023, we have given over 1,100 lock boxes this year, and we've got more to give. So if you're interested in receiving a lockbox, you can do so simply from Columbus Public Health, free of charge. You can go to our website at columbus.gov/lockbox, fill out the survey there, and we will let you know when we have it available and when you can come to the department to get one. If you don't have internet access and you want to give someone a call and ask some questions, you can call us at 614-745-9454. I'll repeat that number again, 614-745-9454, or go to the website columbus.gov/lockbox. We've seen way too many tragedies occur already this year, and some of our youngest residents have been impacted. We cannot let this continue to happen. We have to all work together, as you heard from Chief Bryant, and those who own guns or have guns need to be responsible gun owners. So we encourage everyone who has a gun to help protect your loved ones and the community by keeping them locked away and secure. I thank you for your attention today, and it is now my honor to represent one of our partners in this work against gun violence, Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Appreciate it. I think to set the stage and the context, we were fortunate enough to see a real-life example of what we're talking about with safe storage. The chief mentioned the 3-year-old shooting the father, kids handling guns, discharging them, injuring, killing other people. We actually have on video, many of you seen, but I want to play it for context. And I know some of you all may be streaming. This does include some foul language, just as a heads up to you all. So why don't you play it, Pete? This isn't just some liberal city idea to store your guns. This is the real world that we're dealing with every single day. I don't know how you can look at this as a parent and not have the hair on the back of your neck stick up that your kid could go over to a person's house, a friend's house, and there be a gun laying in a couch cushion that your kid could pick up and point it at his face because he's a toddler, and the gun discharged and narrowly miss shooting his face off. There are real world consequences to these actions. The guy got 10 days in jail. It's a step in the right direction. When we talk about public safety in the city of Columbus, we have in my opinion, the 3 Ps: police and supporting police and the good quality work that they do across our city and enforcement action to get the guns off the streets. We have prosecution to ensure that bad people go to jail for a really long time. We have people, making sure we make the investment in each of them and their families so they have an opportunity to succeed, a chance and hope of opportunity of success. But I'm going to add a fourth one. We need the politicians and the political will to get something done. The stats do not lie. Whether it's mass shootings on the exponential rise following the end of the assault weapons ban and cut by Congress, or whether it's the lack of safe storage laws and the exponential increase in homicides across the United States because there is no political will at our state house or by our attorney general or by our governor or by Republicans in the halls of Congress to make a difference here. This isn't Zach Klein's opinion. This is the data that shows the United States of America as an outlier in the amount of gun-related deaths in the entire civilized world. And we can do something about it if we had the political will to get it done. So we're doing our part. We're not going to give up. As of about an hour ago, my team filed a motion to stay the judgment pending appeal in Delaware County of the decision of the Delaware County judge. And in the alternative, asked him to consider and reconsider the fact that because of jurisdictional questions of it being filed in Delaware County, whether the injunction applies to the entire city of Columbus or just the city of Columbus portion in Delaware County. We're fighting on several fronts. We're fighting in Fairfield County, we're fighting in Franklin County, we're fighting in Delaware County, but we will fight every step of the way until this ends up in the Ohio Supreme Court. And I honestly believe that we will win. I believe we will win because common sense in the law is on our side, contrary to what a very, very small minority group of Ohioans believe. Because the will of the people in changing gun laws to bring common sense to this discussion, to somehow think the Second Amendment is absolute and different from every other amendment that has reasonable restrictions associated with it, it's on our side as the people of the city of Columbus know. And we're going to make a difference. And we're going to help. And we're going to prevent those shootings from happening so that our kids live in a society, in a city, in a country, in a state where they can be free of gun violence. Thank you.
Mrs. G, do you have any comments? Be happy to take any questions from the press.
Question for the chief. Whether they be these unintentional, seemingly accidental shootings or the more intentional crimes where young people are using guns, what are you all finding is the primary way that kids in Columbus are getting their hands on guns? Are they being illegally sold them, or are they finding them in places where they shouldn't, in their parents' houses?
Absolutely. So just like the mayor stated, a lot of our youth on cars that they're stealing or breaking into, where people are storing their weapons because they can't take their weapons into certain places, and the youth know that. So when they go to concerts or where they go places, they will target a parking lot and they will look for guns because they know that so many people own guns, and they'll break into the cars and look for them. They're also taking them from people's homes when they're not secured. If they go over to people's homes, they take them, they break into houses and steal them. People know that guns are so prevalent, and that 9 out of 10, if you break into a car, if you break into a home, you will find a weapon. So they're getting them. And it's a sad day when you can get a gun, sometimes easier than you can buy cigarettes.
Any other questions from the press? So just to reinforce the message, we need parents, caregivers, families to step up, safely store firearms at home. People that have firearms, please do not leave them unsecured in your cars. They have become, as the chief mentioned, a primary way for illegal crime gangs to provide the tools they need to carry out mayhem in our neighborhoods. And we need the rest of the community to step up too with respect to our young people. Even though these kids are not biologically or legally ours, they are our kids. And we have a responsibility as a community to make sure that they're safe. And let this be another message to those who stand in the way of common sense, gun safety legislation. The video is pretty powerful. Not much to argue there. Whether you live in a rural area or an urban area, you're Republican, Democrat, white, black, male, female. We can do more. We know what we need to do. The data, the information, Dr. Roberts has laid it all out. We know what we need to do. We just have to find the courage to do it. Yes?
If you could write the first law, what would it be?
We already have, and we passed it. All we're trying to do is to get the judiciary to allow us to enforce it.
What's the next law?
We believe passionately that we ought to ban assault weapons. We believe in uniform background checks. We believe in red flag law, safe storage, all the things that, banning bump stocks. These are all common sense things. 90% of Ohioans support. Prosecutors, police, Republicans, gun owners. That's what we have done, and we're going to continue to do. And as the city attorney said, we'll fight them. Every court, every county. I mean, do you think it was an accident that the Attorney General and others filed this suit in Delaware County? I wonder how they might have fared in Franklin.
For probably Mr. Klein. In this case, the video you showed, and you mentioned that the person who owned that firearm that was in the couch got 10 days in jail. Why only 10 days?
That was a conversation with the mother and what the mother felt comfortable with. When we do any sort of agreed sentencing, we want to make sure that the victim, in this case the mother of the child, is comfortable, and she was comfortable with 10 days. And so we want to make sure her wishes were honored. The gun was confiscated, it was destroyed, and this is a message and a step in the right direction. And he actually pled to child endangering. He pled to the safe storage. He now has to deal with that on his record for the rest of his life.
Are there other cases pending criminally for this legislation, and what's the status of those given the ruling in Delaware County and where things stand currently?
To my knowledge, there are no current charges under these particular safe storage provisions. We have advised the Division of Police not to charge. We have no idea how the investigations are going to play out to the incidences that the chief described, but they may very well end up in a safe storage situation where we can't charge the individual for safe storage. Maybe there's other crimes we could charge them for, but we can't charge them for safe storage, which is a real, I think, loss and hit against public safety. Child endangering is a fine step, criminal penalty, but the reality is there's two deficiencies as it relates to the safe storage law. The first deficiency is child endangering really only involves your kid or the person that you have custody over. So Bethany, if you have a child and it comes over to my house and something happens, that's your child, not my child. So I cannot be charged with child endangering. And the second is child endangering is a generic law in nature, and there's no guarantee that a jury would find that particular conduct to be in violation of the child endangering statute, whereas the safe storage, it's very specific. Lock up your damn gun away from kids when kids are around. And so having that in our arsenal for a prosecution standpoint is important when you see incidences like these, or the ones possibly that the chief described, that we can have real accountability for individuals so that they can go to jail. There is a heightened level and duty that when you are a gun owner to be responsible for your weapon. Being responsible for your weapon to me is still a pro-Second Amendment idea. It is your firearm. You need to have a sense of responsibility for it to yourself, to your kids, and to your fellow man.
Thanks, everybody. We'll stick around for a few minutes. Thank you. Appreciate you. That video was powerful.